Have you ever paused mid-tweet or maybe sent a text just full of abbreviations and wondered if you're actually undoing all those years of English lessons? Is social media, transforming our language? Or, as some might argue, is it making us, well, linguistically lazy? Or could it actually be making us more creative? Welcome to Daily English Practice. Listen and speak. Today we're taking a deep dive into English for social media. We're exploring how English is really used online, from those tiny abbreviations to the surprising ways it challenges traditional grammar rules, and what all of this means for how we communicate and even learn.
It's a fascinating landscape, definitely. And for this deep dive, we're going to unpack why people abbreviate in the first place and how social media challenges traditional grammar rules, often in really interesting ways. Plus, maybe the most surprising part, how these platforms can actually be pretty powerful tools for learning English. We'll also look at some recent large-scale research on how online language is evolving over time, what those changes might actually mean for the future.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The world of messengers, chat rooms, where abbreviations feel, well, as natural as seeing another selfie. But why? I mean, what's the most surprising reason you found for why these shorthand words grew into almost a whole new language, especially with millennials and Gen Zers? Was it purely practical, or was there something else going on?
That's a great question because it's really much more than just practicality. I mean, yes, historically, character limits on platforms like Twitter, they certainly encouraged brevity. You had to be short. And that habit, well, it stuck around even after the limits increased. Efficiency and time saving are huge drivers too, of course. In our, accelerated digital lives, nobody really wants to type out, notwithstanding the fact that when a few taps will do.
Right. Too many tabs.
Exactly. It's often sort of jokingly called human laziness and impatience, maybe. But you could argue it's actually an engine of linguistic progress, in a way, pushing us toward more concise communication.
So it's not just about fitting within a character count. It's speed, ease. But you mentioned something else. Beyond pure efficiency.
Yes, and this is pretty interesting. There's a definite social dimension. Abbreviations often served as a kind of secret language code.
Hmm.
Think about teenagers especially, how they use them to, hide private conversations from parents. You might remember terms like PAW for parents are watching, or KBC, keeping parents clueless, things like that.
Oh, right. Paw, yeah. So it was like a private club signal.
Exactly. It was a way to communicate without being fully understood by outsiders, creating this sense of belonging among those in the know.
So what does this all mean then? Beyond just saving characters, it became a cultural thing, a way to signal belonging. It's like its own language. And you mentioned these fall into different categories.
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how these abbreviations naturally sort of categorize themselves. They become new linguistic tools for specific needs. We see whole sets emerging just for simple efficiency, like LOL, right? Laughing out loud, or FYI, ASAP, things that are now pretty much universally understood.
The cloud.
Totally. Then there's this really powerful emotional shorthand that's emerged. Think HIFW, how I feel when, or MFW, my face when. They capture complex feelings almost instantly. It's quite clever. We also have direct opinion markers like IMO, in my opinion, or TBH, to be honest, help signal where you're coming from.
Okay, so efficiency, emotion, opinion.
And perhaps the most intriguing, a whole new category has popped up for disclaimers in public discussions, like INL, I am not a lawyer, or the classic TLDR, too long, didn't read. It really shows how specialized online communication has become. You need these shortcuts for specific online contexts.
It's clear that online English is, well, it's a dynamic beast. It keeps changing. But it's not just abbreviations, is it? Social media seems to be playing fast and loose with traditional grammar rules, too. Some people might call it a linguistic nightmare, implying sloppiness or even ignorance. Is there more to it than just carelessness? Or are we actually watching language degrade?
Ugh, that's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because social media writing often focuses heavily on establishing a voice, your unique voice. And sometimes, to get that voice across, what we think of as strict rules are actually more like guidelines. Guidelines you can bend or even break with intent for specific effects.
With intent? Okay, like what?
Well, take starting sentences with and or but, often flagged as wrong, right?
Yeah, I remember teachers saying that.
But even really respected style guides, like the Elements of Style, they use it. It's about creating emphasis or flow. It's a stylistic choice, fundamentally not some critical grammatical error.
Okay, so it's about conscious choice, finding your style, not just being sloppy. What about passive voice? That's another one that gets a lot of flack.
Passive voice is another great example. Yes, active voice is generally stronger, more direct, we know that, but passive voice is used strategically all the time. Imagine you want to emphasize the impact of an action, not who did it, like saying, her body was lifted from the sea. The focus there is squarely on the body, on the tragedy. It changes the feeling.
Ah, okay, so it shifts the focus.
Exactly. Or, it can be used for dry humor. Think about saying, an absolutely brilliant time was had by all. It often lands with a kind of sarcastic punch. So again, it's about conscious effect, not necessarily grammatical weakness.
So it's not about being bad at grammar, but using the tools you have effectively. What about other things people complain about, like comma splices or sentence fragments?
Precisely. Take comma splices linking two independent clauses with just a comma, no and or but. Charles Dickens did it famously. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. What does that do?
It makes it flow faster, connects the ideas very directly.
Right. It speeds up the action, creates a different rhythm, often heightens the drama. And sentence fragments, incomplete sentences. They're used all the time for emphasis, to make a point stand out, like, the house was big and very scary looking. That second part hits harder as a fragment. Of course, like any tool, if you overuse fragments, your writing can get choppy or tiresome, but used well, very effective.
Okay, and then there's the classic one, to boldly go, splitting infinitives. I definitely remember being told not to do that.
Ah, yes, the infamous split infinitive. The thing is, the perceived rule against it, like in to boldly go, it's not actually a legitimate rule of English grammar. It never really was. It came about because some people way back tried to force English grammar to fit Latin rules, and Latin doesn't split infinitives, but English isn't Latin. Often, splitting the infinitive actually makes the sentence sound more natural, more like how we actually speak. And it can subtly change the emphasis, too.
So that rule was basically made up.
Pretty much, yeah. And the same goes for ending sentences with prepositions, another supposed no. Winston Churchill had that famous witty pushback against it, didn't he? Something like, this is the sort of errant pedantry up with which I will not put. Perfectly making the point by contorting the sentence to avoid the preposition at the end.
It really sounds like it's much more about conscious choice, playing with language, finding your unique voice online, rather than just, well, carelessness. That's actually a really empowering way to think about it.
It truly is. When you use these techniques with intent, breaking these so-called rules can significantly enhance your communication. It helps you achieve your writing goals, making your online voice distinct and hopefully more effective.
Okay, so beyond just adapting to this sometimes informal language, can these platforms actually help you learn English? It seems a bit counterintuitive, maybe, given how relaxed it all feels.
It's an excellent question, and the answer, maybe surprisingly, is a resounding yes. Social media offers some really significant advantages for English language learners. It can transform what feels like casual browsing into a genuinely immersive learning environment. It's not just about passively seeing content. Social media helps you learn through, well, a few powerful ways. For instance, you can follow language learning influencers. Lots of experts share great tips, tutorials, challenges, offering structured guidance.
Okay, so like mini lessons popping up in your feed.
Exactly. And you can engage in real-time conversations, jumping into comment sections, messaging people, even doing voice or video calls. That helps you practice forming sentences, expressing ideas, understanding responses in a low-pressure way. It bridges that gap between knowing the grammar and actually using it. Plus, there are language exchange communities groups or hashtags like #LanguageExchange where you can find native speakers for practice.
Ah, like finding a practice buddy online.
Precisely. And participating in challenges. You see these on Instagram or TikTok, like create a short video speaking English about a specific topic. That really hones your speaking skills, your creativity, and builds confidence.
So it's not just passive exposure at all. It's very much about active participation and interaction.
Exactly right. And you can even tailor your approach based on the platform. Each one has slightly different strengths. On Facebook, you can join specific English language groups related to your hobbies, engage deeply with longer posts and comments. WhatsApp is brilliant for direct text, voice, or video practice with language partners you find. Instagram, with its visual focus, is great for learning vocabulary from captions, listening to short audio clips and stories, and following those influencers.
Right, using the features of each app strategically.
Yes. And YouTube, of course, is just a massive resource. Grammar lessons, pronunciation tips, authentic conversations. It exposes you to natural speech patterns. The key is consciously turning these platforms you probably already use into your own personalized interactive classroom. It's like having practice opportunities right in your pocket all the time.
That really does sound like continuous real-world practice, which is just so valuable for language learning.
It is. And beyond just these techniques, studies actually back this up. Research shows social media can significantly increase student interest in learning. It provides unique, dynamic learning experiences. It can even function as a useful academic tool. It improves communication and writing skills, and it offers a kind of back door for learners who might be shy in a traditional classroom setting. You get tons of authentic language input. In fact, one study found that a remarkable 84.6% of students reported they don't feel any boredom when using social media for language learning.
Wow, 84.6% don't feel bored. That's huge compared to, say, just reading textbooks.
It's a significant difference. They found students generally agreed social media was easier and more interesting than traditional methods like reading books, specifically for vocabulary development.
Okay, so while social media can be a really powerful learning tool, there's also this bigger picture, isn't there? How language itself seems to be changing online. You mentioned some recent research looking into whether social media is leading to a kind of universal linguistic simplification. What did that find?
Yeah, this was a really significant piece of research, a large-scale analysis. They looked at nearly 300 million English comments across 8 different social media platforms spanning almost 3 decades. So a huge data set. And what they found was pretty consistent. A general pattern of decreasing text length, messages are getting shorter. They also saw diminished lexical richness, basically, fewer unique words being used on average, and decreased repetitiveness in user comments over time. This trend held up across different platforms, different topics.
So language online is generally getting shorter, using fewer unique words. Simpler, essentially. But are people still inventing new words? Or is that slowing down too?
That's the interesting counterpoint. Despite this overall simplification trend in individual messages, the study found that users are still introducing new words, neologisms into their comments at a nearly constant rate. So the language as a whole is still innovating, even if individual communications are becoming more concise.
That's a bit paradoxical. Shorter messages, but still new words appearing.
It is, and the study suggested this linguistic change isn't primarily driven by the specific technology of one platform versus another. Instead, it seems to reflect a broader, maybe universal aspect of human behavior online, driven by social triggers. They compared it to historical processes of linguistic hybridization or contamination, just happening much faster in the digital sphere.
So it's like we're naturally evolving our communication to fit this faster-paced, broader audience medium, becoming more succinct.
That seems to be a key part of it. And this move towards simplification might not be entirely negative. It could be interpreted as a way to kind of level linguistic differences, making communication easier across diverse groups, especially when people don't fully share the same linguistic norms or backgrounds. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, like a common denominator language.
Sort of. And we also have to consider the role of platform design itself. Social media platforms are built for engagement. They tend to favor, and their algorithms often prioritize language that is simpler, more emotionally resonant, easier to digest quickly, things that can go viral. This design choice can inadvertently accelerate that simplification and maybe even a homogenization of language online.
Wow. Okay, so it's clear that English for social media is, well, it's a really fascinating, dynamic landscape, always changing. It's not just about what's technically correct grammar anymore, is it? It's more about what's effective, what's expressive, and just watching how language naturally evolves to meet our communication needs in these new spaces.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a provocative thought, perhaps. As online communication keeps evolving, as language gets perhaps more streamlined, maybe more emotionally direct in some ways, how might that impact our ability down the line to engage with really complex ideas or nuanced arguments that require more careful, detailed language? And maybe for you listening, how can you strategically leverage these trends, the good parts, to your advantage as a learner or communicator, while still making sure you maintain clarity and depth when you need to across all contexts, not just online?
That's definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into English for social media. We really hope you gain some surprising insights and feel even more well-informed about how language works online today. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives.